soaring through the sky like a bird in flight. A rush of wind passing over your body as you descend toward Earth. It's a sport that most of us would never think of trying. Thought of jumping from an airplane from heights up to 16,000 feet is a little unsettling for most. But for over 400,000 people worldwide, there is no fear, just exhilaration. It's called skydiving, and only those who have tried it know of the indescribable feeling it brings.
The free fall, Don, is so short, you can't believe it. And you're so thrilled. I'm watching Jimmy fly over me, come near me, waving to me.
There are several skydiving centers in the area. The Frontier Skydiving Club of Wilson, New York, is one of the oldest. The club was founded more than 25 years ago by a few people with a love for the sport.
Back in those days, it was pretty much illegal to make jumps. There were town ordinances all over, and there were all different kinds of rules and regulations about skydiving. So these people just formed together and started a club, Frontier Skydivers. They formed the club primarily so that they could buy an aircraft and limit the liability to each other and promote the sport.
Skydiving has advanced a great deal in the last 20 years. Parachutes have become larger and of different designs than the old military chutes most recognize. Along with design changes, safety aspects have increased dramatically. And with this, an influx of people willing to get involved with the sport. The club teaches several areas of skydiving through its training programs. For most beginners, a static line jump is how they become familiar with the sport. Static line is simply jumping from the aircraft at 3,000 feet and the chute opening automatically. But before one can actually make that first jump, a certain amount of intense training must take place.
Depending on the amount of people that are in the class and how sharp everybody is and how much interaction is happening, is typically anywhere from 6 to 10 hours. 6 hours would be the minimum time for instruction. Typically it runs between 8 and 10 hours, so it's a full day. Typical day for static line instruction would start about 9 a.m. on a Saturday or Sunday. We register all the people in the class, make sure they fill out all their paperwork and waivers and fully understand the risk factors that are involved in the sport. And we use a video-assisted training method that's broke down into about 6 parts. We start with classroom training, watch about 3 parts of the video in the classroom. It gives an overview of exactly what's going to happen to them throughout the day. Okay, I want you to do a left-hand 90-degree turn for me, Meg. Then we break and we go out and we do some practical work. The practical work will be showing them how the aero operates so that they can steer themselves in. We practice emergency procedures and exits moving in and around the aircraft. We practice emergency procedures in a harness. Also canopy control. We teach them how to steer their canopy and what they're going to expect to hear from their radio-assisted control. We go back into the classroom for a test and a review, and then they make their first jump shortly thereafter. This is strictly a backup device for us. It's just an added safety device that we like to have.
Throughout the training process, safety is always emphasized by the instructors. They run through various emergency procedures to ensure a student is prepared in the event something goes wrong.
We spend approximately an hour and a half of our instruction day teaching emergency procedures where the students are actually hanging in a harness, the same type of harness that the parachute is attached to, and we take them from exit until landing, and we go over all the various malfunctions that they might encounter, which would be a total type malfunction, a streamer malfunction, a slider hang-up, a spiraling malfunction, and then we also teach them canopy control, how to control that canopy, and what to expect on landing.
Now you may wonder, how does a skydiver find the landing area or drop zone from a height of 3,000 feet? Through radio communications and a large arrow, students are guided to the ground with the help of an instructor.
We communicate with them on the radio to make sure they can hear the radio, that they're in radio control, and we ask them to follow an arrow in the target. And it works very simply. All they do is they point their nose or their body the same direction that the arrow is pointing in. And we have experienced people running the arrow for them, and we guide them in via the arrow.
With the arrow in sight, the jumper exits the plane with plenty of friends on the ground for the first official skydive.
You're doing very good. Follow the arrow, please. We're going to give you a slight turn.
As the skydiver reaches the earth, cheers fill the air, and at least one person seems overwhelmed with emotion.
What a great feeling. Oh my goodness. I never thought I could do it. It was wonderful. Yes, I loved every minute of it.
Perhaps the most exciting addition to the world of skydiving has been the introduction of tandem jumping. Officially beginning in 1984, tandem jumping permits two people, instructor and student, to jump together using a single parachute. The student then experiences free fall on the very first jump. One is physically attached to the instructor, or tandem master, who is in full control of the jump. This gives the added safety factor of jumping with someone who is experienced. As a result, injuries to first-time jumpers have been cut down drastically. It also has allowed people who would never have been able to participate in the sport to experience the thrill of skydiving.
We've taken up people that have been blind because we have eyes, so we can be their eyes. We've taken up people that are handicapped to the point where amputees, broken arms. We've been able to do that with all types of people like this. And even older people we've been able to take up that normally wouldn't do it by themselves.
Fine with you, right?
Yeah.
Student training for tandem is far less intense than static line. A student and instructor get together for 1 hour orientation before the jump. The student becomes familiar with the rig, while the instructor explains the function of each component.
You're also going to get a ripcord. You're going to actually pull the ripcord yourself and open the parachute yourself.
The instructor then attaches the rig to the student and goes over the finer points of the system, including the important aspect of safety.
The whole system is set up with two parachutes. We have the main parachute and we have a reserve. The system incorporates a method where if the main parachute don't open properly, the terminology we use is cut it away. But what we're doing is if the main parachute don't open properly, we jettison it. We have a red handle we pull, and it actually gets rid of the main parachute and gets that garbage away from us, and then we can deploy our reserve parachute.
With a student fully versed on the rig, it's time to do some dry runs on land to make sure there are no mistakes in the air. And with the addition of a free-fall photographer on board, exiting procedures become a little more complex. As soon as everyone is aware of each other's role, the departing process begins. Loading into the Cessna is cramped, but manageable. The engine starts, and the aircraft begins its 25-minute ascent to 11,000 feet. Everyone on board is quiet. Only the sound of the engine breaks the silence. The ride up gives you plenty to think about, especially if it's your first time. As you approach 11,000 feet, the instructor signals for final preparation and hookup. Since the plane is cramped, each member of the jump team must position their bodies correctly. With this done, it's time to depart. The photographer steps out onto the plane's strut. The tandem position themselves for departure. And on the count of 3, the tandem is now in free fall at 120 miles an hour for about 55 seconds. At 4,500 feet, the signal comes to pull the cord. The two now have time to enjoy the peaceful ride to the ground. While skydiving has increased in popularity, only a small percentage are always reaching for new heights. With over 1,200 jumps to his credit, Tim O'Shea is one of those few. Beginning in 1980, Tim instantly became hooked, making over 200 jumps his first year. This initial enthusiasm led him to become the Canadian junior champion in 1981. In 1982, Tim was one of the 5 selected to the Labatt's Blue Sky team, touring all over Canada, promoting special events. His most vivid memory came during this 1983 shooting of a Labatt's beer commercial in California, where he got his first taste of Hollywood.
We filmed it on Santa Catalina Island, which is off the coast of Los Angeles. And we did 2 days of filming the free fall portion of the commercial, and the 3rd day we filmed the party scene. We were parachuted into the party. And we did all the special effect photography after that. That was a lot of fun.
Tim left the team in 1984 and now participates in the sport just for enjoyment. The experience he has gained over the years has enabled him to become involved in the art of free-fall photography, where he uses his knowledge of the sport to capture people in flight, including a more advanced aspect of the sport called relative work.
It's called relative work because you're falling relative to one another. In free fall, you're actually sort of floating beside a person, As far as relative work too, you're falling in formation, but at the same time you go through planned maneuvers which we practice on the ground called dirt dives. You change formation, changing grips, turning, and create different formations.
These formations become quite a sight to observe from above. The record jump is 144 people intertwined in relative formation. Most jump from a DC-3, like this one over Batavia earlier this year. About 40 people participated in the jump. In order to capture this, O'Shea had to climb out of the plane and hang on the door. At the precise moment, he lets go, maneuvering his body to get the best angle of the jumpers joining hands in formation. Then at 4,000 feet, the jumpers break off, pop their chutes, and float gently to the ground. Through all this, you may still wonder, why do people do it? Some psychiatrists say it may be a chemical imbalance in the system, that the rush of skydiving helps attain that balance. But for people who love the sport, the answer is far simpler.
It does relax me at the state of, I've been doing this 15 years, so it's relaxing for me to get up in the air. I can get rid of all my tensions.
I love it. It's just a tremendous release from everyday, you know, activities. It's so different.
You get an extreme adrenaline rush from it, and it's just a very intense, great feeling.
So if you're a believer in the old adage, if man were meant to fly, he would have wings, then skydiving probably isn't for you. But if you're just a little daring and like to experience that indescribable great feeling, there's only one real way to find out.